functioning to near perfection at this point, 2 hours and 8 minutes into its flight since its launch atop the Delta IV Heavy rocket from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. As you can see, Orion is currently climbing away from low Earth orbit, currently at an altitude of 780 miles above the Earth, heading for an apogee of some 3,630 miles away from the Earth. This grainy view out of one of the windows through the flight test cameras on Orion. Those flight test cameras are going to be powered down just a few minutes from now as Orion passes through the Van Allen radiation belt for the first of two such transits. This will be about 15 minutes going through the highest peak moment of radiation for the spacecraft as its shielding, its avionics, its computers are exposed for the first time to the harsh effects of radiation to see how well Orion can withstand all of that. That will be critical, of course, to deep space and interplanetary travel for this spacecraft in the future. Meanwhile, splashdown preparations are underway out in the Pacific Ocean, with splashdown expected 2 hours and 15 minutes from now. The unpiloted airborne vehicle, the Icana, was dispatched very early this morning from the Armstrong Flight Research Center at Edwards, California. It is en route to the splashdown zone, which is expected to be about 600 miles to the west of Baja, California. Again, the flight dynamics officer will be getting us more precise data from the guidance system.
And here's a live view from the windows of Orion looking down at the Earth. Continuing to move to that peak altitude of 3,600 miles above the Earth and getting a more distant view of Earth than we've seen in a while from Orion's continuing to move upward to that 3,600 altitude mark and should be there in about half an hour. As we do get farther away from the Earth, that view of it will continue to shrink, and we'll hope to continue showing it to you regularly here. Although Orion will be doing some maneuvers that will bring it in and out of view, but we'll hope to get a good look at it from 3,600 miles away. That should show us a full view of the Earth from the Orion window.
As we approach peak altitude, we're currently 3,200 statute miles above the Earth. There is another fabulous view of our planet from one of the flight test cameras in the crew module of the spacecraft. Orion is currently orbiting at that altitude, about to begin a southwest to northeasterly track that will carry it across the west coast of Australia a short time from now. Just to recap several times upcoming for key events. Once again, we are expecting Orion to reach its peak altitude just a few minutes from now at 9:05 a.m. Central Time. We'll receive a final update on splashdown targeting by the flight dynamics officer, the latitude and longitude of the expected splashdown point for the vehicle. We'll be inhibiting the attitude control system as the second stage of the Delta IV rocket goes into free drift in preparation for the separation of the crew module from the service module. That's expected 38 minutes from now at about 9:28 a.m. Central Time. The flight director Here, Mike Serafin will be assessing Orion's systems before he gives a go-no-go decision for extended power-up of the spacecraft after it splashes down in the Pacific. That will be of value for Lockheed Martin as it evaluates the thermal effects of Orion's high-speed return back to Earth. The nominal power-down scenario would call for a power-down and a handover from this flight control team to the NASA Navy recovery forces out in the Pacific. That normally would occur about 15 minutes after splashdown, but the latest plan, if Orion systems can support it, would call for that power down to occur about an hour after splashdown, at which point the flight control team here in Houston would hand over to the recovery team out in the Pacific, and the job by this team of flight controllers will be done for the day. Entry interface back into the Earth's atmosphere is currently targeted for about 10:16 a.m. Central Time. That will occur at a point at which Orion will be 400,000 feet above the Earth's atmosphere, traveling at 19,000 miles an hour, with about 831 miles to go before it reaches its splashdown site. Peak heating on the vehicle to about 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit is expected about a minute and a half after the flight dynamics officer indicates an almost bullseye splashdown predicted for Orion, just 1.3 nautical miles east of its predicted pre-flight target. And again, the coordinates expected for splashdown: 23.61 degrees north latitude, 116.46 degrees west longitude, some 600 statute miles west of Baja California. We are now just a few miles away from reaching peak altitude. Again, this dramatic view of the limb of the Earth from one of the flight test cameras in the crew module of Orion. Orion currently flying from southwest to northeast in an orbit inclined 28.45 degrees to either side of the equator, approaching a point just off the northwestern coast of Australia. Again, all of Orion's systems are operating to perfection so far, as we are now just 26 minutes away from separating the crew module from the service module and beginning all of the critical events that will lead up to Orion's high-speed entry back into the Earth's atmosphere and its splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. about 12 knots at the splashdown site and wave heights of about 4.5 feet. Those wave heights have picked up ever so slightly since the beginning of the mission just over 3 hours ago, but certainly well within constraints for a safe and efficient recovery of Orion once it's on the water.